back to our homestead. Today I want to share with you how I'm going to be making St. John's wort tincture. In my language we call this zveroboy. And I have these great memories of my babushka, my grandmother, taking my sister and myself and going on the fields, edges of the forest to harvest zveroboy. And when all the other kids were playing and goofing around the neighborhood, I was coming home with big bags filled with zveroboy, St. John's wort. St. John's wort is growing in many parts of the country. It likes that sunny areas, and it just grows everywhere. It spreads by seed or through roots. So when you're harvesting, making sure that you don't harvest everything in sight, but you leave some to continue to blossom so they can produce seed and continue to spread. So, St. John's wort. My babushka used to say that this plant, zveroboy, was against 100 diseases. She used to say that. От 100 болезней, meaning 100 diseases, meaning that it has so many wonderful qualities. But, as I've been doing my own research and my own uses, I quickly realized that it's really, really important herb against viruses. So flu season, cold season, whatever else season, make sure you have this on hand, okay? So it blossoms in June, early July, at least where we live here in New England. And you really only need to harvest the top portion, about 10 to 12 inches of the plant. The whole plant is about 30 inches tall, but you only really need the aerial part, meaning the flowers and a little bit of the greenery. And that's exactly what I'm going to be using today. When you harvest wild herbs, it's important that you always pick very clean areas, not the side of the road. The side of the road probably is not the best place to harvest because of the pollution, the runoff from the road, from the cars, whatever. So make sure you're at least 60, 70, 80 feet away from the road, okay? So I harvested this on the edge of the farm where I know it's a nice and clean ecological place. So I'm super blessed to find this big pile here. So St. John's wort, what can you do with it? Well, one of the things you can do is just dry them up and use it for tea. Okay, it's great in tea. Also, you can infuse oils, and as a matter of fact, it's a great anti-inflammatory oil. And I don't know if you guys know, but when I suffered my burns, one of the infused oils were used to massage and to release the scar tissue, tightness and pain. We used St. John's wort infused oil because it helps with that neurological topical pain. St. John's wort is also a great agent to support the body against depression. As a matter of fact, it's often prescribed in some countries to treat mild to moderate depression. And so people who do take certain medications to treat depression, such as falls in a group of SSRIs, you have to be cautious if you choose to take this herb because it can be contraindicated to be taken together. So what happens is then a person may have too much of that medication in the blood at that time, and you can have adverse reaction. So it is not recommended for safety reasons to take St. John's wort for those who are taking antidepressive medications, SSRI medications. Otherwise, if you're not taking any medications and you feel nervously exhausted, depressed, run down, this is your aid right here, St. John's wort. All right, so what am I gonna do with it today? I'm not gonna dry it because I already have some dried, stored away. Today I'm gonna be making a tincture, and I really like to make tinctures because dried herbs are really good for a year, maybe 2 years. And after that, they lose its potency. They lose their potency, and then it's kind of like, okay, done. However, tinctures, especially if you use vodka tincture, okay, alcohol-based tinctures, not vinegar, not glycerin, but alcohol and strong alcohol, the shelf life is much longer. Some literature says it's 5 years. I can tell you it can be 10 years and longer. Okay, so, but don't quote me on that. It's for my own family use. All right, so what am I going to do? Well, I need a jar, and I'm recycling jars. This one just happened to be after mustard, clean jar. I'm gonna need a cover. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my glass jar. I'm gonna take scissors. You can take scissors or you can take a knife of some sort. And I'm just gonna cut this up into small chunks. And why do I do that? It's because I want more surface area to be exposed to the solvent, which in my case is vodka, right? And it's going to be to extract more of the medicinal properties from St. John's wort. So when we were sick as kids, with seasonal flu or something, the first herb my grandmother, my mama would go for is St. John's wort. And they would make tea out of it for us to drink when we are not feeling well. So I'm just pretty much gonna focus more on the flowers in the upper portion. I harvested these St. John's wort plants a couple days ago, and I was just too busy to work on them, but I brought them home. I put them in the fridge just to keep them fresh a little longer so I could work on it and show it to you tonight. So some of you may ask me, how come I don't dry it and then use dried plant material to make tinctures? And I have to say, I prefer to use fresh plant material when I make my tinctures, because most plants have water-soluble properties and alcohol-soluble properties, and they act differently, right? So when I use dry plant material, the moisture is already all removed. And then I have to weigh it, see how much water to add. Literally, it's adding more headache to me. But when I use fresh, this is slightly wilted, I'll be honest, slightly wilted, but it's still quite fresh. I don't have to do the math about how much of alcohol, how much water. I don't need to weigh anything. I'm gonna be doing it the folk style of this medicine, where I'm just going to cut it up, put it in a jar, push it down a little bit, and be done with it, okay? I'm gonna cover everything with vodka. So if you break these flowers, how to know that it's a real versus fake or look-alike St. John's wort? So I'm gonna show you a couple of pictures that I have recorded when I was harvesting, so you guys can take a look to see what it looks like. And also another good way to identify that it's St. John's wort is that when you take a yellow flower, but when you break it by rubbing it together or cutting it, it actually releases this red color, and that is a very particular substance that St. John's wort has. So if you are making infused oil, the oil will actually turn red in color. Isn't that amazing? So I think it's pretty amazing, if you ask me. So St. John's wort is, it likes good soil. It's not gonna grow in bad soil, but I have seen it grow in very sandy soils. So it's not that finicky. It will grow in sandy soils. So how much to take? That's what people always ask me. How much should I take? And honestly, I always try to avoid that answer, because tinctures and home remedies is really about knowing how to support your body and knowing how much you actually have, how much is enough for you, sorry. So a common dose of tincture to treat depression or to support the body naturally to assist with depression, it can be half a milliliter 3 times a day. All right, so that's really, what am I saying, milliliter? I mean half a teaspoon, sorry. Half a teaspoon 3 times a day is a common dose to take. So it should be about enough for me to go 3/4 of the way, almost all the way, but 3/4 of the way really. And then I'm gonna cover everything with vodka. What kind of vodka? I like to use 100 proof vodka because in 100 proof vodka, there is 50% water and 50% alcohol. So for me, that works great as far as making tincture. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Let me just collect everything here in the bottom. All my little flowers here. All right, here it is. All right, so this is how much I like to have in my jar, okay? Do you see that? That's how much I like to have. And now I'm gonna take my 100 proof vodka and I'm just gonna cover everything with vodka. I like to keep this now to macerate together for about 6 to 8 weeks in a dark, cool place, away from the sunlight. I know some people prefer to put it in the sunlight. I disagree with that method because the sun is really about breaking things down. And we want it to be slow, low and slow type of thing, okay? All right, so almost to the top, perfect. You know what, I'm gonna grab a little skewer. I'm gonna grab a little skewer and I'm just gonna poke holes to make sure that the liquid has penetrated everywhere. So all of that, so even if I have to add more alcohol now to top it off, I will. And I think I should, just a little bit more. So now it's gonna sit in a dark place 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm gonna be shaking it at least once a day like this. All right, so everything keeps mixing. It's important that I label this, okay? I need to make sure that I label this. I have my label here somewhere. And because believe you me, it's gonna look alike just like everything else. And I need to make sure that I don't mess it up. So I will know exactly what's in here and when I made it and then when it's ready to be strained, okay? All right, so that's that. So let me show you how I'm going to be straining it. I'm going to strain something that's not St. John's wort, but you will get the idea. So hold on a second. So after 6 to 8 weeks, it's important that we strain it. So right here I have that I made elderberry. Oh, elderberry, and I just made a mess. I need something to wipe with. All right, so here I have elderberry that I made tincture. So you need some sort of a sieve, okay, to strain everything. Make sure that everything comes right out of that, okay. And even better, if you actually press on it. So see how I'm pressing on it? If you have an old French press would work very well to press down and make sure that everything comes out, okay? Everything comes out, every single drop of that goodness, all right? So you would break that all and press that down. And then it needs to be stored in a dark container, dropper container. So this one has a dropper, all right? So that's exactly how we need to store all of our tinctures. And then again, in a cool, dark place, okay? And the reason why it has a dropper, because tinctures are measured in drops or dropper, all right? So I like to go like and say, okay, I'm gonna, a little bit too much. I'm gonna go and start with a half a dropper, then a full dropper, that sort of thing. And again, I need to make sure that I label this. Okay, so I'm gonna say elderberry syrup in 100 proof vodka and when I made it. Okay, So that's how it's gonna be, all right? Okay, so this is how you make a simple St. John's wort tincture. So just wanna share with you a couple of things from one of the herbal books that I like to use. And this book is Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine by Andrew Chevalier, and it was published, I think, in 2015. So again, the uses of St. John's wort. It can be antiviral, wound healer, anti-inflammatory, and antidepressant. So it can be used as a nerve tonic for menopause. The herb is considered a specific for lowered mood, and that can accompany menopause. Tissue healing. The red infused oil can be potent for wound healing properties and historically has been used to heal knife and stab wounds. Is that interesting? Nowadays, St. John's wort is more commonly used for healing after surgery and after minor burns. And I know I've used it myself. So these oils often used to relieve neuralgia, like a nerve pain, and for people who may have shingles, sciatica, toothache, that commonly used for that. For viral infections, St. John's wort is often used, and it has a strong antiviral activity. Nowadays, it's used against influenza, herpes, hepatitis B and C. But like again, I said that there's still a safety concern when it comes to using this herb, because people who may take antidepressants, certain antidepressants, they may have side effects because they will interact with that medicine. So you gotta be cautious and always talk to your doctor, because I'm not a doctor. I don't diagnose, treat, or prescribe. I only can educate, right? So self-help uses of St. John's wort: anxiety, depression, tension, back pain, bug bites and stings, cold sores, chicken pox and shingles, depression and decreased vitality due to menopause, neuralgia, stiff and aching joints, tired and aching muscles. So that would be more for like oil massaging and application. So I think it's pretty cool. Maybe that's why my babushka used to say that St. John's wort was against 100 diseases. And she wasn't kidding. It's such a good herb to have. So on this note, friends, I hope you are encouraged to go foraging for some St. John's wort. Have a book with you with colored pictures so you can properly identify the plant and make sure that it's a safe plant to use. Make a tincture, infuse some oil, dry some for tea, and treat yourself and your family. So friends, be encouraged and try something new.